Hello, everyone, and welcome to a interview special on the SWW show. It's me, AJ, back with another VR cooking game with Paulus of All Hail The Cook-o-tron. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, welcome. I'm glad to be here.
It's funny, we were talking about it before we started recording that I make mention that this is another VR cooking game. This is, for me, as I was saying, my third in a row, it feels like. And the sentiment from the previous two that I talked to is the same as what you were talking about, where 18 months ago there were no cooking games on VR. Now suddenly there's three.
And if you don't consider Job Simulator cooking game, which we don't, because honestly, it's more like an intro demo into VR. It wasn't primarily focused on cooking. Cooking was a part of the game, but calling it exclusively a cooking game probably wouldn't be correct.
Right. It's like a tech demo. It's like calling a tech demo like that genre.
There's plenty of cooking in it, but it was a game meant to introduce people, like join them into VR at slow pace, and not really like overburden them with challenge, but like give them an experience. Yeah, as you say, like it's similar to tech demo, but it's way more than that. There's quite a lot of art and design and creativity that went into that game, and it's amazing for what it is. Like, still one of the best games you can give to any newcomer that comes to VR.
Yeah, it's the perfect. It's great that was like when the Vive launched. That was one of the games that they gave for free.
Yeah, it set the pavement for VR. It's a huge contribution to the audience of VR and overall to the popularity of it.
Because I mean, they could have easily gone and given people like just 5 shooting gallery games. Instead, they give a game that incorporates every control, the room scale. Like, it is normally when you look at least it seems this way with consoles, it takes until the end of a console generation to get the game that really like nails down the gimmick of the console. Whereas with VR, at least for me, from my point of view, like that Job Simulator this is the first thing that's coming out and it will last. So like it gets everything, it explores everything of the Vive and of the the promise of VR that we had.
Totally, it's definitely one of the best center applications there is.
And your game, All Hail the Cook-o-tron, appears to be kind of. It's this. Guys are taking the next, I guess, logical step in the not just cooking game. Like, this is the process game. This is the game like I guess process games are like cooking games are easy to describe, but like Overcooked, like yours. But even things like Satisfactory or in some ways Minecraft can kind of be this way when you some of the base automation stuff, where it's no longer a game about like you guys have a goal, right? It's a process. You have to serve customers, not just the Job Simulator example of that is just screwing around and doing whatever and eventually get to end.
Yeah, it's quite fair comparison. So, as you say, if we say the Job Simulator was an entry game to get people hooked in VR, not overwhelm them, but like just to give them like a nice reskin tutorial of everything you can do in VR at their own pace and like enjoy it and also gamify it and have a story while running through it. So we went a completely opposite way and we decided to create as challenging game as possible while being a cooking game because that's what we wanted to do as fans of, and we figured that there was no real challenging games out there, or any in-depth cooking games at the time at all. And that was our true vision. Like we primarily, when we did it, we said like we do the game that we would like to play ourselves, and that meant that essentially it needed to be insanely hard and challenging to a point that any session you play of it should have felt like Expert Plus session of Beat Saber. Like you have to be sweating after you finish the session. Like that level of challenge in terms of both physical undertaking and the, let's just call it, management and overall excitement. And I do believe that we achieved that. But as we found out very soon after we were giving it out to testers, and especially when we gave it to our parents and people who don't have as much experience or familiarity with VR, and obviously are not craving for as much of a challenge, it was far too difficult. So soon after that, we had to introduce what we call a casual mode, specifically for people who are maybe fresher and newer to VR, so they wouldn't feel as much challenged and overwhelmed by the content we created. So in parallel with two games, there's like a simple standard cooking game that people might be familiar with if they played any of us non-challenging cooking games or even Job Simulator, but shouldn't overwhelm them, but should still provide some sort of challenge, and the heroic mode, which we call, which is essentially an overkill and a true test to anyone who really is up for the cooking challenge or time management games.
So I'm curious, like your description of wanting to create. It's a terrible example because it's the only one I can think of, but like the Dark Souls of VR cooking games, something
that would be quite accurate.
Yeah, I hate using that as an example because it's like, oh, it's the Dark Souls of this genre, or it's the Dark Souls
It became kind of a mainstream term for a difficult and not overly balanced towards the newcomer's game.
Non-forgiving.
Punishing and quite hard. That's the best way of saying it.
Yeah. So I guess, like, are you guys, and you mentioned you like the cooking games, do you, excuse me, do you play, like, the Cook Serve Delicious games? Are you playing, like, Overcooked? Are you playing...
Have I played it? Yes. Am I, like, a hardcore player of cooking games exclusively? No, I play a lot of things, and I'd say I play more shooters than anything else myself. My wife, however, is far more into cooking games than I am. But that being said, our inspiration for this game wasn't any of the mainstream games or even the recent releases at all. Like, the prime source of our inspiration wasn't actually a very old PlayStation 1 game. I think it's a Japanese game. I may mispronounce the name, but it's called Ora Nori Ori. And it's really the foundation of the cooking mechanics and overall the feel of the game. What we wanted to, well, be a spiritual successor of. And I don't know if you've heard of it or have seen the game. It's quite old, so I will not hold it against you if you don't know nothing about it.
I mean, I'm sure I've heard of it.
Okay.
My personal gaming history starts at mid PS2 because I just didn't have one growing up so I would have been 11 by the time I got anything. So yeah, I some of the older games that people my age grew up with, I don't have that because I just didn't grow up with them because that was never in the house. I never had a PlayStation or a Nintendo in the house. It was sports and all that fun stuff growing up.
It was quite similar to me as well. As I said, I'm more into action and into action games myself, and it was quite a tough sell for my wife to sell me on the Steam as well. And what we agreed on is essentially that whatever we come up with, I get to tune it to the point that I find it enjoyable myself as a person who's not 100% into games. So it was like on a high. So we innovated and created mechanics that would feel compelling and challenging, and it wouldn't be a pure assembly simulator, as I tend to see a lot of cooking games, especially on mobile, which is essentially you just stack ingredients on top of each other, and that's what you get. And one of the reasons that's why we arrived at the pure physics assembly, as I call it, where nothing is stacking and everything is assembling any way you put it on, and the result in you having an absolute mess of a kitchen when you play for like 10 minutes or more. Like, we thought that's probably one of the things that would give identity to the game above all else.
So I'm curious with the you mentioning that like it's physics are always interacting with the object. Like, do you have you know making burgers? Do you have the skewer to stick down through it so you can?
Nope, you just stick them on top of each other. We took some liberties here and there, like as you say, when you stack ingredients on a plate, like burgers, we tend to just stick them in. Like as soon as you land any ingredient on a plate, it sticks and it stays there. So that part of physics freezes. However, you get to arrange it in any way you like. So unlike instead of example, as you are putting several like 7 layers of a burger and it's stacked perfectly and looks like a flawless burger, like from a TV ad, you most likely gonna end up what you really see in a fast food restaurant, which is a messy, squished burger with all the ingredients crooked and on the side. unless you specifically take your time to carefully place all the ingredients, it'll almost never gonna look pretty. And we kind of thought that's the charm of a game, especially once you start introducing a lot of small ingredients like fries and you start chopping around. And as I say, it gets really messy, and I think that's what really makes me feel like that's what cooking should feel like. It should never be pretty. It should be grimy, messy, and should be ingredients all over the place.
Yeah, in reality, cooking isn't. You know, I can only think of American examples, or I guess like oh no, that's pretty reality TV style, but like cooking shows, so like Rachel Ray or um, Master Chef or something like that. Like it's never that clean. It's always it's British Bake Off. It's you're mixing something up and it just flies all over
Yeah, well,
because physics.
MasterChef is not a bad example, actually. It's just that they do have, more often than not, several people on it. And if it's just one person cooking there or more, they rarely need to make more than a few dishes just to impress the judges. We went more on the, as you say, like down on the line type of feel when you're serving 50 or 100 of dishes and you have a time constraints to feel like the pressure of customers really want that. And you obviously get punished if you don't deliver on time. So you need to efficiently prepare ingredients in advance if you want to hit those times, and you need to manage your time. And as a result, there's not much time for prettiness and the maintenance of your kitchen. So as a result, you have to cut corners, and arguably, at the end of the day, it should be a very messy environment where you're struggling to hit the deadlines and deliver your dishes. Which fairly should simulate what a fast food cooking is. Like, that's what the industry is like. I worked in KFC for over 4 years myself, so I remember what it looked like inside, and like there was food all over the floor and it was a mess. Obviously you have to clean it up constantly, but I don't think that has changed since then.
It definitely hasn't. It is funny though, seeing kind of these stressful games is not necessarily the right phrase, but games that will definitely induce stress coming to prevalence at a time, at least in the States, and I'm sure it's a lot like this around the world, but it's a little kind of relaxed stance that the U.S. has taken in regards to coronavirus stuff. It's a little more stressful for the everyday people, but seeing these games kind of come to prominence again in 2020 and going into 21 when it's like, I personally don't think I need any more stressors in my life. So
Say that was unfortunate timing. We
Yeah.
didn't design and started the game when COVID hit.
Yeah, I'm playing like truck simulators and farming simulators, and I'm finally figuring out why the German market loves those games. It's because they're de-stressors. Just hop around, you just hop on and either drive a truck around or you drive a tractor around, and you're like, you know what? This isn't half bad. And then you see people hopping into, oh, let me play Demon Souls, and use all that stress on me, and it's time-based things and things like that. But I will say they're in a normal, and who knows what normal is going to be from now on, but in a normal world, like those stressful games are generally pretty fun because it's less of the stress, at least for me, like especially these games when you're making that are time-based and accuracy-based. It's less of, it's not the Demon Souls like dark, dingy, large orchestral score that induces the stress. It's, okay, I have 8 plates that I need to spin basically at once, and it's going through the mental logic of, okay, what order do I need to do things in? And excuse me. So you've seen these.
I get your argument. You
Yeah.
don't want to overstress yourself, and you go down to play video games. You probably want to relax. It's a long, stressful day. It's probably another way to look at it. That it's not necessarily stress that people are after, but challenge. And when it comes to challenge, there comes time constraints and pressure, and that naturally induces the stress if you can meet the challenge. I totally understand, but same logic. I don't think people play Demon Souls or Dark Souls to get stressed. They play it because they like the challenge.
I mean, I would say yes, they love the challenge, but I have seen people that, I genuinely don't know. Like,
as could be also the people who got peer pressured into trying out the game
Yeah.
and may not be comfortable with, or they never heard anything about, and just get slammed with insanely high difficulty they can't handle. Those people do get stressed out. More of a reason why we also had to add an easier difficulty, because we figured our game would be far too punishing for people who are not so versed into VR. I mean,
yeah, and
that's why difficulty exists.
Yeah. Like, if this was, it's interesting because I would have said before the Quest 2 came out that VR was kind of reaching that maturity point of, we are going to see more of games like these, where the natural progression of, okay, you've had this now for several years, so we're going to ramp up difficulty because you should be, comfortable with control schemes and comfortable with the settings and things like that. And then when the Quest 2 came out and brought in a much more casual audience into VR, I'm like, yes, like it's kind of weird, right? You're seeing the influx of casual people that the Quest 2 is their first headset, and they've only had it for a little bit, so they're not as comfortable with the controls. Meanwhile, you have like yours and games like Substeiner and things like that are, and even Half-Life Alyx, like that is a challenging game.
It does have an easy difficulty in case you don't want the challenge. Like,
Well,
every Valve game really comes in with a mode for you to just experience the story. And
but you have to.
it's
a Valve game. You have to play it on or
you're
higher.
letting your personal pride to get into it. You have to play it because you know what you expect. But as I say, people who are new to VR, last thing they want to do is like put themselves in a hardcore experience they can't even handle the basics of. It's like saying it's a Beat Saber. You definitely have to play it on Expert Plus, otherwise it's not even a game.
Yeah, which that game has continued to escape me. Like I've seen it on sale and been like, oh yeah, yeah.
Beat Saber has escaped you.
Yeah.
Oh my god. How long
Well,
have you
and
had VR?
I don't know. It was one of those things that I heard about it when it came out, and I had tried it a couple times. I'm like, yeah, this is pretty cool.
Oh, so you have tried it at least, so
Yeah.
you know what it is.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it would be very unfair to talk about a game if you've never even tried it.
No, I've tried it and I've seen it, and so I know the deal. I know the Beat Saber gimmick. But yeah, well, I've seen it on sale and I've seen it on Steam and things like that, and just been like, yeah.
The game is a killer idea. They
Yeah.
pushed everything you can do with VR controls to the max, which means, like, the only way to make next level past PB Saber is to introduce more sensors, or ideally a force feedback, and then you could go beyond that. And it's the same reason why I think a lot of RPG games where you swing your swords came short, is because, well, what you're swinging is a weightless controller. Well, it has the weight itself, but there's absolutely no force feedback, and you never really know if you hit anything. And, well, that's exactly how you should feel with a lightsaber when you slice through everything. There shouldn't be any resistance. You should just be slicing through everything. And there's very few games out there that actually addressed melee combat in VR like that, where your swingable object or sword or whatever has infinite weight or slices through everything like it's butter. Like everywhere else, it's usually a bash simulator when you're bashing into an object, and well, you need to bash it several times before its HP bar depletes. But it does not really feel like that in your real life counterpart, because you're essentially swinging into the air.
Well, and that's actually that's an interesting argument for the kind of giving up reality. Like I know the term from film, but suspension of disbelief.
Mm-hmm.
That aspect with a controller in your hand, like you'll run around and swing a sword and it bounces off something. And you're like, okay, yeah, whatever. You're not even really thinking about like that doesn't break the game. That doesn't break your brain when you're thinking about
It does actually break a brain for newcomers. For the same reason how newcomers have a really hard time adjusting for the free locomotion rather than walking in the real life space. Like even if you give them a free locomotion game, they don't try to walk with their feet and punch their head into a wall. They will do it. Like this will always happen with newcomers to VR. It takes them hours, if not weeks, to adjust to like, no, I must not walk. You put them in the chair maybe helps, but most of the time, if they're standing, they're guaranteed to take a few steps every now and then, even though they're using locomotion, because they are that immersed. And same goes for force feedback. If you're gonna hit objects, you kind of expect to have some sort of resistance, unless you're handling super strong lasers that can slice through anything like that. Like it's butter, and then we don't really need to feel any resistance. That's what Beat Saber got right. And as I said, the only way to one up that right now is advanced controls, force feedback, any sort of tangibility.
Who made that suit? Res Infinite made the
who
haptic
made the
suit.
Beat Saber? Oh, haptic suit. Yes. But the thing is, haptic suit is not exactly that. Haptic suit just lets you feel when. Yeah.
But I mean,
what
it's
you
also
want is force feedback gloves, the ones that actually give you an actual feedback when you're touching it, and they pull your fingers or arms back to make you feel like there's actual tangible objects you're touching. So you no longer feel that everything is weightless and made out of air. That's what you need.
Well, let's just go to the logical conclusion. The exoskeleton actually
exoskeleton. Yeah, that would pretty much set the immersion.
There
are many of simulations that are going around it. Like for example, you can buy accessory gun controllers that are already made compatible with Steam VR that have inbuilt air recoil into them. So when you shoot them, they actually recoil correctly to simulate the game you're playing, which is a very immersive aspect. I mean, most of the VR arcades are using them for that reason. It's not really a consumer-grade product, but VR arcades definitely make very good use of it, and it's amazing.
Well, and stereotypical American, knowing how to shoot a gun, the problem that I have with those is yes, you get the kickback, but the thing that those never do, and airsoft guns, BB guns, anything that isn't literally harnessing an explosion, you don't get muzzle rise. You get the feeling of it hitting you, but you don't get the physical that exhaust of gas that wants to fling it upwards. But
you're right in that regard. But when you're in VR, you don't really care as long as there's any sort of feedback. Your brain does the rest.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be one-to-one physical representation of force feedback for you to feel immersed. It just has to be some form of feedback. For the same reason, you have a haptic suit. When you get shot, you don't actually have to feel like you got shot. You just need to feel a bump in your body to see, I got shot there, Where otherwise, when you play VR, unless there's a UI indicator at which you're paying attention at the time to see that you got shot in a certain body part, you wouldn't really know. You wouldn't care. When you play, if you play a Pavlov or any game with a haptic suit and you get shot, half the time you don't even notice. The HP bar just flashes. You wouldn't even know, oh shit, I got shot. Like, for all you know, the guy was very awkwardly spraying at you for 10 minutes and it's just horrible and missing everything. But you didn't notice because you just drizzle your leg or something. Haptic suit supposedly fix that because they give you feedback, an additional form of input to know, hey, by the way, I know you're not looking at it, but someone just shot you in the butt. And you're like, oh, crap, It doesn't have to feel like an actual bullet. And the same goes for gun recoil. And anything else. It doesn't have to be one-to-one representation. It just has to be there.
Yeah, it's funny when you bring that up because when they brought out that, I guess it was always in it from the start, the Xbox One controller, and it had the rumble triggers.
Oh, yeah.
And they were like, oh, this is going to change the way that you play Forza. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. I hopped on Forza with, the first time that I got it and went around a corner and I could feel, the right trigger was rumbling from the tires slipping. I'm like, okay, you know what? They were right.
Yeah, well, any feedback helps. It doesn't have to be one-to-one representation. Yeah. Same goes for new PlayStation 5 trigger feedback as well. Now when they do it, they're simulating the trigger recalls. Have you seen those ones?
So I do not have a PlayStation 5.
Nor do I. I only saw the tech demos, but I reckon it has to feel quite immersive and it bounces back at you like that.
Yeah, what I've heard from people talking about, you genuinely feel like you're pulling back a bow, or you're kind of feel that trigger, the click of the trigger in the controller. I'm like, okay, that actually sounds real.
And we both can agree, even without trying it, there's no way in hell that controller will give you the same amount of resistance as the bowstring does. No way in hell. It's just going to be some sort of background input, and it will still feel like you're immersed because what you're getting is the signal, and your brain just does the rest. And I think it will be the same for VR. You just need any sort of input there. And as I say, the best way to judge a good VR experience is if you can do it on a basic level with your eyes closed. And that's how we were testing our kitchen as well. We built haptic feedback where possible, specifically for the same reason that I could operate with dish surfaces and do certain functions off screen without ever looking at it. And it's really important for virtual reality games. Well, what I'm trying to say, the example is, as I'm facing customers and they require several dishes, including drinks and fries and kebabs, and I'm just looking at them, and in front of me there's just plates and vegetables. Without even turning my head, I can take my hand to the left, and I can feel the kebab gun, and I can slice some kebabs, and the haptic feedback should do the rest to feel that I'm actually slicing it. Give me feedback for every single action. Same goes for my other hand. If I raise, and I can grab the drinks dispenser and grab the empty cup, slot it into a machine, jam the button, and all that has to be communicated through haptic feedback. So you can do it off screen. This was a very important exercise we were doing to make sure that it's possible. And obviously, we are very limited because the only haptic feedback we have is certain frequencies of vibration on controller, and that's pretty much it. But you add the feedback to the trigger the same way PlayStation did. That's already a huge thing. And then beyond that, if you can actually add the feedback to your individual fingers and the wrist to actually pull it back and give any sort of resistance, and you pretty much cover like 90% of all the possible haptic feedbacks you ever need for any game, beyond actually going into the putting like, as you say, full exoskeleton to pull back your arms and your elbows and everything else when you're punching.
That's, well, I say we're 10 years out from somebody figuring out the exoskeleton and.
No, they already exist. It's just that they're too expensive to make it commercially viable.
I know they're military use right now, but the idea of makes the Omni treadmill, that the treadmill that is a dish that you can run around in and it hooks into VR. Like, that's existed for several years, but it's like $15,000 or something like that.
No, not anymore. Maybe the first iteration. They made a relatively cheap version right now for the consumers.
Okay,
which is very compact, and you can have it in your bedroom. It doesn't take more space than your chair. Like, it's actually made it perfectly in that circular shape, and it's relatively lightweight. I mean, it has to be heavy enough to actually withstand your weight and not flip. But I'm pretty sure they made a version of it. I'm not certain if it's out in production or it's still on the Kickstarter, but we're already sending out test kits to the early backers. Don't get me wrong, I'm not 100% certain of it, so I don't want to lie on this, but I think it was around $600.
That's not bad. It's
like a VR headset itself. But to be fair, the accessory of that complexity and to give you this level of immersion, it's not expensive. I've seen a lot of virtual guns, as you say, with recoil boosters in them, which are costing more than this.
Well, and it's $600 doesn't sound bad, but you have to then take into consideration it also needs a $6,000 to $1,000 headset. It needs a roughly $1,000 PC. Like, $600 doesn't sound bad.
I don't imagine that at the end of the day, at this day, at the current time, VR enthusiasts would be the ones who are not spending anywhere below $3,000 in a VR kit. Like, anyone who's a VR enthusiast has to spend that much. Unless they're the entry level, they're using just a Quest, or as I say, like entry level VR system, like they may be bought second hand and they're running on the old computer, they were always gonna have to pretty much drop $3,000 on it. That's the price you pay for being an early adopter for literally anything. And as the hobbies go, it's not really that expensive. There's far more expensive hobbies out there. Look at any person's doing car racing, or even, as they say, airsofting. Airsofting is far more expensive than that.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
I did a little bit of airsofting. Entry into it costed me hundreds. Just the entry. Just to get the entry gear, the outfit itself and everything else. And what happens when you go into custom making mods or your own guns? Oh god, it's just gonna go to thousands easily.
Or, I mean, you go to the basic thing, right? You go to sports, like any sport, if you want to play it at a, short of basically basketball and baseball, there's equipment, there's pads, you need to rent fields, rinks.
Any sport where you need to buy equipment will easily can get way far more expensive than VR hobby. Yeah. And this is what another thing that kind of annoys me is that people still look at it and it's like, yeah, but it should be cheap, I can buy for my kids and stuff. But you have to understand, this is not a cheap gimmick. You can buy a cheap entry version of it, which you can give to your kids and anyone else. Actually, you shouldn't, because every single VR headset says it is for 13 and over. It was never designed for children's head to put a heavy object on your head. It could cause neck injuries or whatever other unforeseen circumstances. And you shouldn't actually be giving to kids, despite a popular belief. But as I said, it was never designed to be, as they call it, a cheap experience. It was designed to be a next level, and it's still not mainstream. Oculus wants us to believe it is, but it's not. It's not mainstream as getting a console to your house. Most people who get consoles often don't play more than a few games or use it as a media hub, like to even watch movies or stuff.
yeah, what was the somebody? It was either PlayStation or X. Well, I know Nintendo said like, if they put the Netflix app on it, like they were expecting to see gameplay drop by like 60% or something like that.
Would definitely happen. I can believe that.
Yeah.
I have a PlayStation and I haven't played a game on it since Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I am using it every single day for Netflix.
But yeah, one of them was like, yeah, here are the top 10 games based on total hours or whatever it was. And then it was, here's the top 10 just apps. So they included, I think like Fortnite made the list, but it was Netflix, it was
Probably Amazon Prime.
yeah, Prime, it was Hulu, it was like all the media apps were the top 4 or 5 for sure.
Yep.
And then they started to sprinkle in games. I'm like, yeah, like people
It's
that
also not fair to judge that way, because
yeah,
if you're gonna use Netflix, you're gonna watch a lot of different content on it. If you're gonna play a game, well, you're just gonna play that game and drop it, unless it's
right.
an MMO or a multiplayer game. You're never gonna spend. The average user will never gonna spend 1,000 hours on it, as they would on the app like Netflix.
Yeah. And
So it's really not fair to judge.
yeah, you can't judge when somebody's like, well, and even if we go back to the PlayStation 3, like when everybody likes to hark on the, what was it, $599 remark. That was also one of the cheapest, if not the cheapest, Blu-ray players in the world when it came out. Same with the PS2 for the DVDs. So
Disney
like,
invented Blu-ray.
yeah,
Like Sony
yeah.
invented Blu-ray and patented it. So as far as I understand, it wasn't just cheapest; it was the only one until the other ones came along.
No, Sony proper, not the PlayStation division, under their consumer electronics had a couple out, but they were over $1,000.
Yeah, Blu-ray was very expensive when it came out.
And then the PlayStation 3 comes out and it's 500 or whatever the number was. And everybody's like, "Oh, that's way too much." And then
Well, it was tough sell because there's not that much content on Blu-ray. It's not like you
Yeah.
go in every single supermarket and you see Blu-ray movies on the shelves. That was not the case, so it's tough sell.
yeah,
But if that was the case, then easy.
easy sell. I mean, it's an easy sell now to sell a console. You can say, we have a 4K Blu-ray player. Even though 4K adoption is super, super low in the consumer market, like, if you can, oh, my kid wants a Xbox, okay, we're probably going to upgrade the TV, so we'll just get the one that does the 4K, and then there, you sold a Series S at minimum, and that takes away the sale from, I don't even know who makes 4K Blu-ray players. Probably Sony, but
On the same topic when it comes to this, have you heard the rumors that Xbox is supposedly maybe entering into VR stage? Now that they have like a powerful console in there, which is matching the 2080 Ti in terms of graphics and can easily undertake VR.
I mean, I heard the rumors that Microsoft was going to buy Oculus when they were showing Oculus on the Xbox stage.
Really?
3?
Huh. Well,
It was before
rumors-
HoloLens. Like, it was the year before HoloLens.
These rumors are a little bit more recent and based on the fact that people who were digging in the source code and patches of Flight Simulator found that Microsoft may have been testing it on the, how's it call it, Scarlet system, which is essentially Xbox X.
Yeah.
They were
Well,
testing the VR capabilities of the Flight Simulator.
yeah,
That
Flight
would
Simulator on
imply
PCs
they were
already
at
got
least-
VR. So.
Yeah, that would imply that we're at least benchmarking to see if it can run. And it's possible that maybe we'll release some sort of VR accessory that will compete with the direct entry headsets like Oculus Quest and possibly PlayStation VR, which is insanely huge market. even though it's been left without any foreseeable upgrades for a long time. I know for sure that PSVR market was the biggest VR market, beating all the PC VR all the PC VR headsets combined for like first 2 years. Probably Oculus overtook it by now, but there's still a significant amount of people who actually still have it. And if Xbox entered the race, that might prompt PlayStation to enter the race again with a newer VR headset, and spark this competition all over again.
The only reason I would say Xbox isn't going to do their own headset is because that is it's a price war now. Like, it was very clear when the Series X was announced and the price came out, everybody was like, okay, PlayStation's going to be this or higher, and they were that or lower, but it's a price war between the consoles now, so for them to release their own thing, it would have to be, I forget what PSVR was, but you would be looking at $300 to $400 accessory, and that's the price of a console. So for them, it would be a little tougher.
Isn't PSVR accessory still over $200 even after all these years? They never really dropped the price on it.
I have no idea.
I know that on launch it was $300, and it was a little bit cheaper than the console itself, but it was still pretty much the price of a console, and that did not stop millions of people adopting it.
Yeah. Well, and it was also...
in all fairness, the standard VR headset at the time was like $800, I think. That was the cheapest one. Like Vive was costing around like that, so it was way cheaper by comparison.
Yeah, and now that the Quest 2 exists, I mean, they're going to have to, for a console manufacturer to get into VR, they're going to have to release a headset that is $250 at most, because the Quest 2 is $300. So why put the money in R&D and making your own headset? Why not just adopt Oculus support or whatever? So I would see that before Microsoft making their own.
Well, whichever the case they choose to do, at the end of the day, they definitely have hardware to do it.
Yeah.
Like, I was saying, arguably, PlayStation 4 never had the hardware to run VR, and PlayStation 4 Pro was the proof of it, because they addressed that issue as well. And they tried to run it, but hardware was never up to date, even compete with the entry-level PC version of VRs. But now, they can totally do it. I'd say, like, even PlayStation 5 and the Xbox X series, they can totally pretty much recreate any existing VR title and run it like flawlessly on it, even Half-Life Alyx and everything else. No problem.
Yeah.
We could, like, if they just allow you to have VR support and just plug in your any existing VR headset, as you say, Quest or Vive or anything else, or even the Valve Index into it, that would be amazing.
I think the only thing limiting the Index is its DisplayPort only, and I don't think the consoles have DisplayPort out.
Actually, yeah, I don't know what kind of plugs Xbox One X has.
So you would have to do like an HDMI to DisplayPort.
HDMI and USB must have that.
Yeah.
That being said, you could get converters. It's not an issue.
Yeah. I mean, I'm running a HDMI to DisplayPort for one of my monitors, so. And the nice part is, Index
Xbox
has that
runs
breakaway box.
4K. Xbox runs 4K and 60 FPS. That means it definitely can handle the traffic that DisplayPort 1.2 would handle. So they can easily just get a converter and run it through. Like, this shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, but that can cost a lot because they would brand it and.
Well, regardless, it would still be cheaper than buying a whole headset. Just get a converter and say, like, here you go, you can play Index on Xbox One X. And
yeah, I mean,
that would
even if they made the converter $300, which is
really
way too much, but it's still.
You think they'd do that? Make a converter $300?
Well, that would be the high end of it, right? Like, if they said, hey, here's a converter for your Series X so that you can plug your index into it.
You just said like if they make a headset, it has to be at least under $300.
Yeah.
It's like, but if they make a converter, they'll also make $300.
Well,
implying the same amount of
if,
R&D to make a converter as a headset.
Yeah. I mean, the headset would have to be under 300, but the adapter they could do whatever they want because that would be people that have $1,000 headsets already.
They don't need to go up to that silly ridiculous. Also, there's going to be also third-party adapters. If they actually gouge the price to that level, there's going to be third-party adapters all over. The point stands that if they allowed official VR support for the consoles, we would see another burst of audience joining VR ranks, not just PC VR and PlayStation.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean,
VR scene.
If the Series X just tomorrow announced that, hey, here's an adapter, an HDMI to DisplayPort adapter, so you can run your Valve Index, or whoever they want to partner with, right? If they want to partner with Oculus, whoever, like.
Well, my argument only stands because Xbox One X is essentially is running in the same architecture as the PC is running. It runs the same games pretty much. It's essentially a shrunk down PC with limited amount of inputs, but it's a narrowed down PC on a very affordable pricing for any household. That's what it is. Without the features of you to pretty much run any debugging softwares on it or any third-party applications that allow you to make your own games. Like you probably can't run Visual Studio on it and the Unreal Engine and start making your own games. That's not the case. Unless they let you do that. I don't know. You can plug a keyboard and mouse in it. Maybe you can turn it into a PC if you want to.
Well, I think
I've seen people installing Windows on it, so it's possible.
Yeah. You'd have to kind of backdoor it, but I remember like the PlayStation 3 had the dual boot.
Yeah, it did.
And quickly realized that, hey, maybe we shouldn't allow this because it allows people to break these things open and do whatever they want with them. So
no, I can stop them really.
Yeah.
You can't really stop. If people want to take your hardware apart and hack it and modify it, you can't really stop them. That will happen.
Oh yeah, it'll absolutely happen. But having that, they weren't all of the launch PlayStation 3s. It was only one of the hard drives could do it. So having that, but then that allows people to, even casual people that hear about it, they can pull up a website and be like, oh, all I have to do is dual boot, plug this USB in, and then I can get all the games. Cool. Whereas in a modern console, to get that takes some serious knowledge. So, yeah, I will say though, it has been incredibly fun talking to you.
Okay.
I know you just woke up, even though it's going on 5 o'clock over there. But I will let you get on with your day.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you very much for joining me.
And, it's been a pleasure.
This episode is partially brought to you by the Humble Choice program. Did you know Humble Bundle has a great monthly subscription service that lets you get a ton of video games every single month? That's right, from plans range from $5 to $20 a month, you get a hold of a bunch of free games they have available to you. And you can use our code down in the description below to go and sign up. It would help our podcast and help you see what great games are available for you this month.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another of these interview episodes of the SWW show. First off, it's weird because it's videos. I don't quite understand this. AJ told me I have to look professional today. It's very confusing.
I mean, looking professional for the both of us is sweatshirts.
Perfect. Yeah. Anyway, I'm Mike, as you know. That there speaking is AJ, and we have a guest with us today. From all the way from sunny, I've heard cold for LA standards, but warm for me and AJ by a mile. So we're going to say sunny, warm Los Angeles. Sam. Sam, let's start with how are you doing today? I guess it's like 11-ish or so for you right now.
Yeah, I'm doing great. It is a little cold for LA standards here. It is below 60, which is
Oh, darn.
awful for us. Yeah, it's really tough to adapt. It was 90 last week, so big
Sounds
180.
like Florida. Like it's 90 or 60, and there's no in between.
Look,
Yeah,
it is
basically.
like 10 outside right now for me, so like you would literally
Where are
probably
you based?
die. I'm in right outside Minneapolis right now, so like it's a lot colder.
Oh
than
yeah, no, I wouldn't leave the house. No way.
Like he's wearing a t-shirt, AJ. Me and you wouldn't dream of wearing a t-shirt right now.
I mean, I'm wearing a t-shirt underneath this. I probably would have worn it anyway, but it's sunny and balmy, 34 degrees out right now.
No, I can't handle it. My family's on the East Coast. That's where I grew up, and every time I visit, it's usually dead of winter when I visit because it's like holidays and everything. And I'm just the worst there. They're like, let's go do something, and I'm like, what if we don't? What if we just sit in the heat all day?
What if
He's
we
like- he's
enjoy
like-
this?
Yeah, he's like, we have hot chocolate in the house. We have a fire.
Yeah.
We have a blanket. Where am I gonna go? I don't understand.
Right? The whole like getting dressed for the cold, I'm just not into it.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
You come from a land where t-shirts and shorts is the business attire.
Oh yeah.
That's good. Yeah, so we're here to talk about, I guess it's kind of twofold now that we kind of initiated that. So we're here to talk about a combo of, you have a port coming up of you guys' game Where Cards Fall, and also you are part of the team behind, I want to say the home run success, because I don't have a better phrase this
Nice
one.
fun.
Yeah, game of Blaseball. Why don't we start out with, I kind of want to start out with Blaseball just because it's a thing I feel
Sure.
like that really wrapped into last year, and I feel like a lot of people talked about, and like you guys got a ton of features on even stuff like Giant Bomb's Game of the Year and like articles written about it out of nowhere. You want to start with like that pitch of like what is Blaseball?
Yeah, Blaseball is an absurdist horror take on like fantasy baseball, where you are betting fake money on fake teams that play simulated games of baseball around the clock, like 24 hours a day. And you are using your earnings to buy a variety of things, but the main thing that you cash in on are votes. And every single week, we have an election where you can vote on how you'd like to remake the league in your image. And some of the options that you have are like kind of standard rule changes, like relegate a team. Other things are a little bit crazier. Like the very first season of Blaseball concluded with the fans voting to open the Forbidden Book, which caused the discipline era, and umpires started incinerating players with their eyes, and it just got worse from there. But yeah, it's really a game about like mass collaboration. You know, we always say it's like you're collaborating and building solidarity against malevolent forces that are outside of your control. Malevolent forces like the Peanut God, which was killed at the end of the first era of baseball. So that's the kind of stuff that you do in it. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, my initial understanding of Blaseball was it is kind of the evolution of these ARGs that started back. I mean, well, the one that I can remember is like the Halo ARGs, like, and then for this to kind of come out of nowhere, it felt like when I was hearing about it, I'm like, okay, this is gonna be for some like, I don't know, random like, like Super Mega Baseball or, one of those kind of arcadey baseball games. I'm like,
Still
so
might be. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? I was like, I'll just, whatever. I don't like to get into those anyway. So, but then it started, I kept hearing about it. And then it was kind of like, oh, this thing has legs. It's not just it's going to play out kind of the way that the, developer of whatever game it's supposed to be an ARG for, like, it's not that anymore. It's okay from my point of view. This is a serious, like, serious is a weird word to use for it.
It's hard to use that word with Blaseball.
Yeah,
I get what you're
not,
saying.
Like, there's zero interaction short of the votes, and so people were talking about like, yeah, you're just watching like a ticker go by as things are happening, and I'm like, I just like I know the draw behind those games, like a football manager, like the
Hmm.
out of the park baseball games, that it's just you don't see anything. It's like, oh, so and so hit the ball and got to first. And like, man, I just can't like. I'm sure there's people that love that stuff, but I just couldn't get into it. And I was like, okay, the thing's gonna die out because people are gonna get bored, and then
You had high
lockdown.
expectations for us.
Well, just knowing kind of the way things go, right? Of like it gets popular, and then there's just a tail to it. But then lockdown continued and continued, and I'm like, this thing's just gonna last forever. Like people are just they're having this up on a second or third monitor, and it's just running, and I'm like, okay, whoever made that, like, first off, it was amazing how long it lasted, kind of the anonymity of it, of like nobody knew who the commissioner was, and like it's just this shadowy figure, and then people started to guess and things like that, and like I don't care. Whoever's running this is amazing at it. That or they're the luckiest person in the world. And then it just kept going and going and going, and people are talking about it still, and I'm like, man, like Call of Duty couldn't even do this. Like most Call of Duties, Modern Warfare and Black Ops have been incredibly successful for them, but you know, you hear of things dying out after 4 to 5 months. This is going on what, like almost a year now, it feels like.
Well, time is hard to track these days. We launched Blaseball in late July, so we're not quite at a year yet. But the game was only really live for about 3 months. The first era, the discipline era, lasted from late July into late October, and then we're on what we're calling our grand siesta right now, which is our opportunity to develop the next era of baseball. So we just announced actually that we're going to be back in late February. We announced a tentative date of February 22nd. Gave ourselves a little bit of leeway too in case we need an extra week or two. But that's what we're shooting for right now. We've got a lot of good stuff planned.
You like worst case, there was a pandemic outbreak on the teams, and now we're gonna take an extra week there for the teams to really recover. Is what you go with, I assume, when you hit that delay.
Just say one of my learnings working in video games is that all dates should probably be tentative if you can make that happen.
I like all dates just being like a month or a season when you develop games. I'm like, when's your game coming out? I'm like, fall of 2021. And like, what does that mean? I go, I don't know. I haven't described what fall means yet. I'm still figuring that out myself. So I've got
or just do a year. Just tie a year to it and be like, 2024. Oh, it came out in 22. There you go. You guys are like,
there you go. Bonus.
Yeah.
So I've got to ask, I'm kind of curious, so you guys obviously are letting the people kind of decide, and then stuff's reacting accordingly. And the user doesn't know quite how stuff's going to react. How much of that do you guys have planned ahead of time versus how much of it is like, okay, they decided to open this box. We have to decide what opening this box means.
Yeah. We kind of like set landmarks. So we have like a general sense for what the overall space that people can play in looks like what the possibility space looks like. But we don't know what direction people are going to move within that space. So once they start moving, then we start adapting on the fly. And a lot of the the core pillars might be there. Like we might know okay, we have this event that if they do a certain number of things, we can bring that in. There's an opportunity for that. But the players will always do things that surprise us and always do things that we don't expect, which means that we have to adapt on the fly. And that's part of the fun of it is that, the players can organize a campaign around necromancy and bring a player back from the dead, which is not something that was planned at all. And then the next week, we bring them back from the dead, but at a cost. There's like a new little story beat in there too. And that type of stuff is really fun because it feels like a performance on both ends. It's a performance from us, helping to kind of facilitate what the narrative could be, the players seeing what the possibilities are, doing something that we don't expect, and then us responding to that.
I feel like that stance is like, it's the one thing that regular sports and digital well, not even digital. I mean, physical, like tabletop games do it too, where if there's a rule, if you're banking on everybody following that rule, your entire thing is going to crumble because somebody is going to find that rule and be like, okay, well, it says I can't do this, but it doesn't say that I can't do this. So I'm going to, my favorite example is there was a time in hockey where there weren't rules for goalies just putting up the snow on the ice to block the puck when they left the net. So they would do that. And then finally the NHL was like, sorry guys, you can't do that anymore. Well, then they started packing it around the posts and then they had to take that out. And I'm like, guys, like, just, the rules are going to be broken. And so for a game, like, there are games that you can kind of, at least the vast majority of people you can get in a corral, right? Like Call of Duty is a great example because it's happening right now. That game has it's a corral, right? Not more than 90% of the people are going to play a specific way. They're not going to attempt to break the game. Whereas Blaseball being this Twitter revolution of everybody suddenly got a ton of time on their hands, and this one thing where people can gather around that you don't even have to be a fan of sports to understand it. Like, that was, if there was one thing that was going to be they nailed it. It doesn't rely on baseball knowledge. It doesn't rely on sports knowledge, really. And so people can just start hashtags and Twitter campaigns, and for you guys to do something like that and just open up hey, here's the rules, but we're open to changing this is I think that's the perfect approach now. You guys nailed, from my point of view, right? You nailed it. And it's just this project will be talked about in 5 years time, if that, in college courses of
that's what I was thinking.
viral marketing. Yeah. Of, marketing virality, and also just the group think. It'll be psychology classes, it'll be marketing classes, it'll be development classes. It's got to feel good knowing that something that you made is suddenly changing not just the book, right, but changing literal textbooks that people are studying.
Yeah, thank you. It's a really cool feeling. If we are lucky enough to see those textbooks include Blaseball, I think it'll be really sensational. But yeah, I mean, just the fact that it's resonating with so many people and has allowed people to form communities and just get a sense of being with other people in a very isolating time is what's most fulfilling about it for us. The original design goal for this project was, let's design something that can bring people together during quarantine. And everything was driven out of that goal. The mechanics, even the theme, we're sports fans at the game band, and we're missing sports. So we're okay, this seems like using that as our reference point could be a way to give people something they can possibly engage with, which is what we're used to doing during this time. And this is before all of the major sports leagues came back.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You guys nailed that. There was that stretch where it was everything ended,
mm-hmm.
and then it wasn't sure when things were going to happen, and then suddenly you start hearing about this random Twitter thing of, oh, check this out, it's baseball, but it's not, and I'm okay, I'll
that's
just
the pitch right there.
Yeah, I'm I'll just wait for regular baseball, because baseball, also you guys picked the perfect sport, right? Because
There's not much to watch.
Right.
That's going to be putting baseball, I think.
Baseball is the ultimate social game. It's, 3 to 3.5 hours of sitting with your friends, drinking beer, eating hot dogs, and occasionally watching guys hit a ball 400 feet. And so it allows kind of the the social aspect of it, right?
Mhm.
There's a lot of
It's a game that
downtime.
you enjoy passively.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other really nice thing about baseball is that it's a very character-driven sport, and that you
Yes.
have a duel between a pitcher and a hitter, and you can focus on these two people at once rather than a whole team's movements. So when you're just like, into the text form, just focusing on one character versus another character, and it adds a lot of drama to it. It makes it much easier to spark your imagination.
So I got to ask, I know you're in LA. Are you a Dodgers fan? Are you an Angels fan? Are you
Dodgers fan.
okay? Well,
Yep.
they're
Very
my
happy.
second team. I mean,
Nice. Who's your first?
Tigers by guilt by association, being in Michigan. But
Tigers had some good years.
yeah, and the last time the Dodgers won was thanks to a Tiger. So they kind of became my adopted second team after seeing
I like that.
the Gibson era at both teams, and so it was fun to watch. Plus, they're just fun to watch. Like, you have Cody Bellinger, who looks like he's continuously just ripping a bong in the dugout and just stoned out of his mind, but somehow is one of the best players in the world. And then that
It
entire
might be
team is
related.
He's like, I don't care. I got this.
fun. And then
He's a
you
very
got
relaxed hitter.
yeah, and then you got guys like Muncy who will just bowl somebody over. You got
Yeah.
lights out pitch. Like, it's a very, very fun team to watch, and it's fun to see because I mean, the last time it was '86, but even the Angels weren't good. They've never been good.
Well, last time it was 2020.
Well, yes, but
Very
previous
happy
to
about that.
20, it
Yes,
was
sir.
86, I believe.
See, I grew up in Chicago, so we have the Cubs fan, which is the correct answer there, and that is all that said there is that is the only answer in Chicago is a Cubs fan. Anyone else is lying to you? I'm sorry, is half the city now knocking at my door? I'm confused. So I have a question here. I've been reading on my second monitor just stuff about Blaseball and like different quotes and stuff. I also have the Wikipedia page of Blaseball, which as accurate as Wikipedia always is, and I have to ask about. It says your original idea here was to make this a horse racing game?
Yeah, that's accurate. So originally, actually, this is kind of a cool thing to talk about because what we do at the game band is we don't always start with like mechanics or we basically we're starting with a overarching design goal. Sorry, my headphones keep coming out here, but basically, like, for Where Cards Fall, we wanted to make a game that was kind of expressing the fragility of life through its game mechanics. And through Blaseball, we were trying to make a game that would bring people together during an isolating time and be able to be played passively. So the very first, as I started thinking about that, like, what could that look like? What I came up with was, okay, browser-based would probably be interesting, even though that's not common these days because everybody has a browser tab open while they're working from home. And it would probably be something that we have to be able to play without like too much input so that, it could exist during your day-to-day life. And it would be really cool if everybody was watching the same thing. So it wasn't like something that you have to kind of plan around or like spin up an instance of on a Zoom call or something. And gambling felt like a really nice like way to have like a very light investment. And when I thought of gambling, my first thought was horse racing because I think part of this is I grew up in Baltimore, and Baltimore is like a big horse racing culture as well. So that was the first thing that came to mind. And also one of our team members, Roldan, had been working on a tech demo where he was using horse racing as a theme. It was for a different project, but it wasn't a horse racing project. He was just using that as the theme for the tech demo. And that was in my mind too. So I pitched it to the team and I got like complete dead silence from them when I first pitched it. They were just like, why are you pitching this to us right now? And then I started to like kind of explain what I was excited about the idea. And they're like, okay, and we're starting to get it. But the horse racing just has got to go. Like, nobody cares about horse racing. And then Joel, who's one of our lead designers, he was like, okay, maybe if it was like a little bit more absurd, maybe if it was something like snail racing. So then we started talking about that for a little bit. And then eventually we were like, wait a second, hold on, we're all baseball fans here. That sport makes so much more sense for this. We don't have to actually visualize anything except for the bases. The experience of following along a play-by-play on baseball on your phone or on a web browser is so like delightfully primitive. You can get so much out of just seeing like who's pitching, what's the count, who's at bat, what's the score. You get like a lot of the drama without anything else. So that seemed like a perfect fit for both scope and for the actual idea and for the absurdity. We were like, okay, snail racing wasn't going to be it, but can we make a baseball league that descends into chaos? Probably. And that was our very first design discussion on it. It went from horse racing to snail racing to baseball league. It'll descend into chaos in about an hour, and then we got working.
That's amazing how like you walk into a meeting, you're like, hear me out, everyone. We're gonna bet on horses. Everyone's like, what about baseball? Like, it's more like it's position on paper. You're like, I don't understand how we go from A to C at all. But I feel like we're missing a lot more than B in this middle.
It's a credit to my team. We've all worked together for quite some time now and have a lot of trust in each other and are able to kind of see like when somebody's excited about an idea, kind of figure out what's the core part of it they're excited about, and is this and this like all extraneous from it. So, when I was pitching this, like I think what Joel latched onto was, okay, like what he's excited about is the simulation that everybody is watching, the gambling mechanics, and like the kind of mass multiplayer style where everybody is collectively, cashing in their earnings and doing things to affect the sim. So the theme itself was almost like, well, it just needed to make sense. So that's kind of where the horse racing came from, but that could be anything.
Also, I feel like baseball you don't have to do anything for it to descend into chaos. It just naturally does that. Like
Also, group voting naturally descends into chaos.
Yes.
You could have been at any topic. Everyone, the moment you put it into a group, or you have a big enough group, you're like, why are we now voting on, is this pick a president? That is not what this vote was about. Like, it's naturally stuff's going to happen when you have a mass entity like that. So I do actually want to jump us into the other thing, which I believe you on for, which was your point of where cards fall. Before we get there, though, AJ, is there anything else about Blaseball you want to hit on with?
I can guarantee you I have way more questions, but also this isn't a Blaseball interview. However, I would love to turn it to that. This is about where the cards fall.
Well, I think the relationship between the two games, as different as they are, is kind of interesting. So it's not a bad place to start.
Also, it's really hard to invite someone who like helped make this thing that like came out of nowhere and like not talk about that.
Oh, totally.
It'd be like talking to Scorsese and not bringing up one of his masterpiece movies and just being like,
I don't care what weird
I do
thing you're
not
looking at
think
now.
I'm on the same level as Scorsese, but I appreciate it.
I mean, maybe not in the
Most
grand sense of it, but in terms of like you made a project that everybody latched onto. I mean, he makes projects that everybody latches onto. Like, I mean,
fair enough.
Scorsese makes weird indie documentaries, but I'm always going to ask him about Goodfellas. It's the moral of the question. Like, independent of what I'm here to talk about, Goodfellas is coming up, and he understands these are the rules of existing in his life. Which you'll be asked about Blaseball now for the rest of your life. You hope you understand.
I hope so. I mean, I'm a big Scorsese fan, so
there we go.
I get always wanting to ask him about Goodfellas.
We'll clip that audio of comparing Blaseball to Scorsese.
That's our intro clip.
Send it to you, and then in your Twitter bio,
that's your clip.
Yeah, the Scorsese of video games. Hopefully one day we can live up to that.
AJ, I expect you to clip that audio. Okay.
It'll be highlighted for sure.
So the thing we originally brought you on for was, so you guys are also working on a port of your mobile game Where Cards Fall. So immediately I've got to ask you, because you just made the comment yourself and the comparison yourself. Why are you comparing this to Blaseball?
Yeah, so Where Cards Fall and Blaseball are obviously not very similar to each other. One of them, Where Cards Fall, is a slice of life coming of age story where you're building houses of cards to bring memories to life. It is a puzzle game. It is very atmospheric, like for fans of games like Inside or games like The Witness. Like they'll have a lot to latch onto there. Blaseball, of course, is entirely were mostly text-based and multiplayer and weird and very, very, very different. That said, the reason that I started the game band was I wanted to create a studio that could make games that would kind of push the boundaries of interactive storytelling or just explore new territory. Games are still a very young form and felt like there's a lot left to try. And make games that weren't like power fantasies, make things that were, very distinct and different from anything people have played before. So I really wanted it to be a studio that could reinvent itself. And where Cards Fall, the initial inspiration came from the Radiohead song House of Cards. And Radiohead is one of my favorite bands because they take so many risks and they always are able to kind of redefine what your expectations are about them. So both of these games are attempts at making games that reflect the world that we live in, telling stories in really unique ways that only games can do. And they're both radically different from each other. So that's very much like kind of the ethos of the studio. And my hope is that whenever we do another project going forward, it'll be radically different from both of these projects, and it will continue to surprise people and continue to push ourselves.
You're going for the you bring up Radiohead, but the singer-songwriter like Bon Iver or somebody like that each album is like, while they have connections between them, they are radically different projects. And
yeah,
that's actually a really interesting take, because you don't see that. I mean, really, like music and sometimes movies, like that's the only place that you'll occasionally see that. Games, it's like, oh, you are now a action adventure studio, you are a text studio. There's no, you're not going to see DICE make a walking
JRPG
simulator.
Oh,
JRPG.
that works.
Yeah, and for good reason. Like I think the limitation in games for a long time has been the tech investment. Like you spend so much energy building out, your core technology around what you're good at, and then that kind of defines the types of games that you're making going forward because you've already built all this stuff. For a smaller studio that relies a lot on very like great off the shelf technology, like where Cards Fall was made in Unity, Blaseball is a variety of web frameworks. That investment is a lot smaller. Like, yes, we did invest a lot into our own kind of custom tools for where Cards Fall, but it's not the same as building an engine from the ground up. So if we want to do a more dramatic turn, there's the cost to do that is a lot lower. And that's only really been possible in more recent years when the off-the-shelf engines have gotten so good and just the whole field has been a lot more democratized.
As I said, yeah, because worst case, you're like, well, nothing similar besides what you do. We could take the safe system out, we could add this new thing and create those things transfer, but the rest of it ground up. But like, you're not doing this. Not like 20 years ago you have written your own engine, and that people are like,
right.
Yeah, this engine only does stuff in 2D, and no one can move too fast because it just breaks, and we don't know why.
Yeah, totally. And, there's like kind of conventional wisdom of, do what you're good at. But I'm hoping that what we ultimately prove to be good at is unique forms of interactive storytelling. And that can take a variety of different forms, a variety of different genres. I mean, you mentioned film, like great storytellers can span multiple genres. Like I think about Danny Boyle, who almost never repeats a genre, has done horror, has done drama, has done all sorts of things, biopics, all across the spectrum.
So I'm kind of curious. So as we're talking about Where Cards Fall, I feel like just because the timing and how long it's been out. So that game was around the launch of Apple Arcade, if I have my dates. About
it's a launch title. Yeah.
So it's about right on that. So what's interesting to me is we're starting to see this trend now because it's been long enough where you've seen this Apple Arcade for a lot of titles exclusivity ending and now being able to be transferred to other things. So I'm kind of curious, obviously staying within your grounds of NDAs and contracts, because I know Apple probably made you sign 1,000 of those. How do you kind of feel that we're going to be seeing like a lot of this kind of stuff transferring over, and do you kind of feel like this is kind of like the trend from this point going forward in the industry based on what you kind of saw with this thing, where like people go like, now we go to this platform to this deal of these like subscription services, and then we kind of a year later start seeing the move on like more than we used to?
I honestly have no idea. I'm only privy to the deal that we signed with Apple. I'm not privy to what arrangements they made with all the other developers that were part of Apple Arcade. I mean, across the industry, like sometimes you have platform holders and publishers that have like a standard thing and everybody goes with that. Sometimes everybody works out their own thing. I don't know, which part of that Apple is on. I'm very happy that we got to be part of the launch for Arcade, and I'm very happy that we're going to get to be on Switch and PC, in the near future.
It's it's funny that you mentioned that you were an Apple Arcade launch game. This is now like our at least second that I can think of.
Yeah, because we also talked to the Watch the Golf. We talked to the Watch the Golf
cool.
guys. Like
it's a great game.
We talked to them right before they announced their Apple exclusivity deal, and that was really funny to us because we were like, "What's this Arcade thing? Oh, we just talked to these guys. Oh, this is a giant game." Like, so I think that's very interesting that like we keep finding this trend of like these games that are like either going on the platform or off of it. And Apple Arcade I think is interesting just generally speaking because it's a thing that like it's obviously very big, but I feel that like people aren't talking about. Like it's just a thing that is big. It's like I joke saying like League of Legends is giant, but if you ask people in the industry, no one talks about League of Legends anymore. It just is there making money. And I think Apple Arcade is kind of falling in that window.
Yeah, I think that's true of a lot of sectors of video games. There's like the things that are in vogue and in conversation for my Twitter feed, it seems like, and then there's games that are immensely popular that you never see conversations about. Some of the most popular games in the world right now are games that like I never see any discussions about. And I think I think that's a really interesting phenomenon. Even things like Among Us, which is such a fantastic game and brought so many people together this year. Not one that I always see in like game development circles, but talking to friends and such, like it's huge.
It's a very it's interesting to think about because like if we think about what are the biggest games, like they're probably not big in the States. Mm-hmm. Like that's just kind of the way the world works. Like I hate to break it to Americans, but the U.S. is not the biggest superpower in the world anymore. It's not the population center. If we,
especially when you start kind of like mobile games are the biggest a lot of times. Like it's not America. It is even like stuff like I thought like I could be wrong. I thought like people talking about like even like Japan usually outnumbers Americans in mobile game playing. They might not Americans in game playing, but in mobile game playing they do.
And most people that play games are playing on mobile. That's another thing that is like hard to. For people that have been into this forever, to even like recognize and appreciate. But I mean, that is the biggest game platform right now. And a lot of those games that are really popular, like you were saying, are not widely discussed.
So I'm kind of curious then. So obviously you're going from a mobile platform to Switch and PC. And it's funny because to me I go, oh, jumping to PC, that makes a lot more sense in my head than almost. But controller-wise, I'm almost curious if I'm wrong. Because in my head always, I thought controller-wise, I'm starting to see more and more mobile Switch ports because it's very functionally very similar to an iPad in a lot of ways, looking at it.
Mm-hmm. So I guess I'll start off by saying that before we were selected to be part of Apple Arcade, Where Cards Fall was in development for Switch and in development for PC. So it shouldn't feel like a port when it comes out. Like it should feel just like a native traditional PC or Switch game. So these versions of the game have been in development for a really long time, and I'm really excited for people to finally experience them. The control issue is it depends on the type of game, but some games translate really naturally, some don't. And I think for a game like Where Cards Fall, we had a pretty enormous design challenge with translating the gameplay to all of these different platforms. I thought it was a very fun design challenge. Like I wasn't, angry about it at all. But on iPhone and iPad, when you're playing the game, the core mechanic of the game is you're building these houses of cards, and the houses of cards kind of become these like three-dimensional platforms that you can use to rearrange space and traverse through these levels. And the playing through a Where Cards Fall puzzle feels a bit kind of like, it's almost like construction, but like it's like Portal, but like a construction version in a way where you're like have to like kind of really get to know the geometry of the space and really think through how you want to navigate it. And the core mechanic, we wanted it to be like incredibly tactile and like really feel like you're creating houses of cards regardless of what device you're playing it on. So on mobile, we decided to use the pinch gesture. You're like squeezing and expanding these piles of cards, and they kind of magically form into these structures. On PC, what you're doing is you're clicking and dragging, like you're pulling the cards and then releasing to let them turn into these card structures. And on Switch, we use the two joysticks together. So the left joystick moves the cards, the right joystick expands and contracts them. You almost never see the right joystick for anything except for camera, but our cards was a fixed camera, so we're able to have a little bit more fun with it. And then the triggers are for kind of grabbing the cards. We focused on the most like tactile parts of the controller. I think it feels really, really nice. You can also play with the controller on PC too, so whichever version you get, you'll get that.
So I have to imagine, knowing that it was originally going to be a PC and Switch game, like especially considering the way phones have almost surpassed, that I guess, what is it, the 8th generation, right? Like they say the Switch is roughly comparable to a PS3 and a 360 in terms of horsepower. Like the fact that the chip inside of the Switch is basically what an iPhone runs on now, like that had to be a not insurmountable task, but like a much smaller hill to climb to be like, okay, we're taking this and moving it to mobile. Whereas even 2 years ago, like that hill would have been like, okay, we have to scale back features or we have to scale back graphics or something like that. Like it's got to feel really good for your project to, succeed in a way that it has, with that hill now being super small.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, like, there's still plenty of optimization work. Whenever you're focusing on a very specific platform, there's platform-specific things that you just have to take into account that are going to be different. I'd say for the iOS platforms, one of the challenging things was there's a pretty broad spectrum of mobile devices.
Right.
You have high-end mobile devices, your brand new ones that have really impressive graphics tech at this point, than ones from just a few years ago that are very, very different. Right. And with mobile players too, like they don't necessarily, and this is not their fault at all, they just don't necessarily have an understanding of the performance differences between those. So we just have to make sure that it runs as well as it possibly can on all of them. These devices, like your phone is not marketed like a PlayStation. It's not like you're buying the new phone for the next level graphics or anything. It's a new phone. It's going to be faster. And you don't know that all that other stuff comes with it too.
So I'm kind of curious, and again, if at any point you feel like you can't answer this, because NDA is just obviously just shut me up, kind of be like, hey, we really don't want to answer, so you can't. What is the line of, like, so obviously you're developing this thing for Switch and Steam and these platforms in mind, and then you got invited or whatever you said to Apple Arcade and you pivoted at that point. Are you allowed to kind of like keep the work you had so far and just kind of put it on freeze and then come back to it again, or do they kind of be like, no, kind of like this is a different thing and you have to go kind of restart more from scratch in these ports kind of thing?
That question actually never even really came to mind, because by the point where we were selected for Apple Arcade, we had to finish developing the game. So then once the game is finished and developed, now it's like going back and bringing, making the Switch version and PC version. A lot of that work kind of just deteriorated anyway because we moved past it. So the real the work that went into those two versions of the game that like kind of built up our base was more on the design sense. It was more of like we had figured out like what the control scheme was going to be. We had it running on these. We kind of knew what was working and what wasn't. So by the time it came to like actually like making the ports properly, we didn't have to go through a ton of iterations there. We already knew exactly what the spec was and just kind of dove right in.
So looking at the time, we've stole you now for roughly about 45 minutes. I think I have one last thing of AJ thing after that is, so right now you have Warrior Cards Fall coming out sometime this year in 2021 on Epic Game Store, on Steam, on Switch. do you have any tighter thing right now? Or is that kind of your sticking with right now? Is this like 2021 somewhere in this year time frame we should expect it on those devices?
Yeah, it'll be early this year, so it's not that far off. But I don't have like an exact date for it just yet.
Perfect.
Hey, just keep that date vague, as vague as you can, until like all of a sudden you're like, oh hey, here it is.
2020s. It is somewhere in this decade. We can expect it on these devices. It's perfect. Right. And then, obviously, you said Blaseball back 222-ish asterisk question mark. I don't know, hyphen, probably back around then.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like you can't use asterisk when you're going anything semi-related to baseball. There's too many of those already. You've got the Astros asterisk. You've got the steroid era asterisk. You've got
when's gonna be Blaseball's first asterisk? We're waiting.
We'll find out. We'll find out that you actually was all actually happening in this world of simulation. Like it was gonna be like nonsense like that.
Maybe.
Yeah. AJ, anything else for Sam before we let him go escape back to actual work?
Yes. Everybody listening, we need to get a Blaseball like trash can banging something like Sam wants an asterisk for Blaseball. We need to make an asterisk for Blaseball.
Yeah, what's the Blaseball version of banging a trash can?
Twitter bots?
It's
I
gotta
don't
be
know.
something.
I guess it would be like.
We better hope your spam filter is good on making accounts. That's all I gotta
since
say.
Since you brought this up, one of my favorite little bits of making Blaseball is we named the Houston team the Houston Spies, and their tagline is "Bang Bang." And since so many of our fans are not baseball fans, very few of them even commented on that. And I thought that was like the most obvious joke that you could possibly go for, and was shocked to see. Like 3 messages in the Discord mentioning it.
The Houston Buzzers. Yeah. Well, that is like, you want to talk about like inside baseball, like that. It kind of made its way to mainstream news. I mean, I remember seeing like screenshots of them talking about it on Good Morning America, and like, but was such a like. Unless you knew what was going on, that story is like, people don't believe it. They're like, no, you're talking about like a movie. You're talking about like the next Ocean's movie is.
Dodgers fans believe it.
Yeah. Dodgers fans. Who else? Anybody that played the Astros or Red Sox.
Yep. Guess who else played the Red Sox?
Yeah. Anybody that played those 4 years.
I can't be bitter now. We won. We're good.
I mean, no, you can still be bitter. It deserve at least one more ring. So, yeah. Mike, I think that's it for me.
Well, Sam, thank you for spending your time.
Thanks for having me.
So thank you for your time. So let's make sure I have everything right. It is Where Cards Fall coming soonish. Switch, Steam, Epic Game Store. All that fun stuff, and then Blaseball is just blaseball.com.
Yes, blaseball.com. Follow Parker, the commissioner, on Twitter. He's doing a pretty good job. That's just at Blaseball, and we're the Game Band. You can find us on Twitter too.
All right.
Awesome.
This podcast was a production of the SWW Show. To learn more, go to theswwshow.com. Remember, you can follow the show on Twitter at the SWW Show. You can follow me at Mikey_Maroney. You can follow AJ at LowSeatBoy. Remember, new episodes premiere on Friday, 9 a.m. Central Time on anchor.fm/SWW and podcast services around the globe.